Hey, Journey. Hey, everybody. I got a new flex. We started 2025 with our vision here at Journey Church. The theme was a new flex. So I got a new flex. The Pastor's Brew is ready for you podcast, where we invite you, we invite others, community, friends, family to sit down and join us for a lively discussion exploring various topics that are relevant to faith, relevant to community, and personal growth. In each episode, my prayer, I'm gonna do my best in each episode to do a deep dive into what's brewing in our lives. The question that I may ask you, what's brewing in your life? What's on the stove? What's in your cup? We want to know, we want to talk about it, whether it's a theological issue, whether it's a community issue, whether it's an issue of growth, and or as it relates just to your everyday life. That's what God has planted in my heart to do. That's what I'm excited about. That's my new flex. I'm starting out, and we look forward to having more and more persons come on board. So that's what you can expect. Join in, subscribe, and please be supportive. And hey, who knows, one day you might be sitting across in that chair discussing what's brewing in your life. God bless you. I look forward to seeing you soon. Pastor's Brew is ready for you. I'm elated. I'm ecstatic. I'm over the moon about the possibilities of what this podcast is going to do. I'm also ecstatic, and I'm just walking on water because I'm blessed to have two of our Ebony Bishops here to join us today. Bishop Leonard Fairley, who is the resident bishop here at South Carolina Annual Conference, and Bishop James Swanson, who is retired United Methodist Church bishop. And as his bio says, and I'm going to share that with you all later on, he's retired but not tired. And we're so excited about that. And of course, we know Bishop Fairley, you're not tired because you're here and you're leading us to a great work here in the state of South Carolina. But this is a unique event because we're hosting the men's conference here at Journey Church this weekend, and we'll have three Ebony Bishops that will be a part of the conference this year, plus men from all over the state will be here descending on the campus here at Journey Church. So we're excited about that, and we'll welcome in Bishop Holston on tomorrow. We'll bring him in and also include him in this dialogue. He's on the way, so say prayers for his safe travel as he gets here. But the podcast is named The Pastor's Brew is ready for you, and a part of that, we just want to know what's brewing. So, Bishop Fairley, because you are the lead, you're the lead dog, as we say in the relays, which I never ran in, but you're the lead dog. So I'm just going to ask you what's brewing in.
I think the thing that's brewing in my life is just the excitement of the new day that I sense in my spirit that God is birthing in the life of God's people. And I say that because of what I've been able to witness since I've been here in South Carolina. There's this energy to move forward, energy that I hope that I could build on, just a legacy, of course, that Bishop Holston started. And I want to continue that, to move into that new place that God is calling us to be about. And I know that one of the ways that we move into that, and I've shared this in other settings, that we must be willing to let go of one good so that another good could be born. Wow. What I'm sensing in South Carolina is you've done a lot of amazing and beautiful things in your churches and in a lot, both lay and clergy. Yeah. But what is the thing that we would be willing to die to in order to live?
Wow. Let go of one good
so that another can be born.
Wow, that's powerful. We'll revisit that. Bishop Swanson, you come a long way. A long way. What's brewing? I know what was brewing last night. The Lady Gamecocks And they tore up Arkansas. You and your wife are big fans of Don Staley and those Lady Gamecocks. But what's brewing?
What's brewing with me is that I am also serving, though I'm retired,
Okay.
I'm serving as the interim General Secretary of the United Methodist Men for the General Church.
Great.
And so I'm really excited about possibilities for men's ministry, which is, to be honest with you, taking place in the midst of a cultural change.
Okay.
And so how do you do that, given the fact that this is also, and I truly believe this, sort of the era of the woman?
Era of the woman, okay.
And so how do you do that without disturbing that movement?
Correct.
While at the same time giving men the necessary opportunities and strokes they need to not only be a part of the kingdom of God,
Sure.
but also leaders within the kingdom of God. And how do we learn as men and women to share that?
Okay.
And that's one of the things that I'm experiencing, particularly when you're talking about a denominational church. It may be a little bit easier
Correct.
in other congregations, other settings, but in a denominational church, how do you do that where others are not threatened by the mere fact that God is moving among men, and especially in the era when it's not really about power,
Okay.
it's really more about fulfilling purpose.
Yeah.
So if you don't do that, no matter how much power you have, you don't fulfill the purpose God created you for. You're playing games.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I'm really kind of excited about that.
Sure. That was very exciting. Very exciting. Well, yes, sir.
Bishop Swanson just reminded me of something that I didn't say.
All right.
And it's
Got more
what-
brewing.
and-
More
and
brewing.
the more brewing is this. That I like this saying that was developed in my life some years ago. And it's a saying that we should live, that we might see the possibilities
Okay.
and live the promise.
Live the promise.
So I'm looking for possibilities and looking for ways that we can live into that
Yeah.
as a promise,
As a promise.
but as a promise from God.
Yeah. That's excellent. Excellent. You must have been reading my my cue card here. I'm a novice at this. You all appointed me at Journey to preach, but now I'm trying to expand that gift to do interviews. So, but you helped me out. You helped me out on that. What do you see? And Bishop, if you continue that. I mean, we're living in a time of great transition. World, community, church. What do you see as the future? And it'll be two-part, because we want to talk about the ethnic church, the black church, but also just in general. What do you see as you look out in terms of the future of our United Methodist Church?
The other thing that's important to me in my journey is to understand that the best years are not behind you, they're in front of you.
Okay.
And I believe that if we begin to live once more, not so much to save the institution. I know that sounds funny coming from a bishop.
All right. Not to save the institution.
But we're not here to save the institution. And if we live our lives as if that were our major why, then we've missed what Christ has called us to be and to do. Mainly to be.
Okay.
We have to be first.
Be first.
Before we do. And I think that we do a lot, and Bishop Swanson alluded to this too, we do a lot as a system.
Okay.
We do a lot institutionally, but we do a lot forgetting that we must be first. That we must be rooted and centered in Jesus Christ. Before making so. That's why I can say that the best years of the church, they're in front of us. And that's what I see. Sure, we're in a season of transition. We're in a season of uncertainty. We're in a season where there's a lot of division, a lot of polarization. But what if it is the best time to be doing this work? Oftentimes I think about the quote by Charles Dickens, it is the best of times, it is the worst of times. But regardless of the times, this is the best time. God does God's best work in the middle of chaos. But we must have eyes to see it. We must use holy imagination to see it. And so I do believe that what's coming out of this transition, if we can get through it, now we have to step up. This conference is going to be Rise Up Men.
Rise up.
Steps of a godly man. And so that has to be a part of what we do.
Okay.
But to me, I see the future as bright.
Yeah.
Now that may mean, again, this thing about letting go. When John the Baptist was baptizing Jesus, he looks at him and he says, I must decrease and you must increase. Best advice that I've ever been given in my life is to learn how to let go and get out of God's way.
Wow.
And so to be leaders like you and our younger leaders that we develop, that we're going to have to learn how to get out of the way and let them lead.
Okay.
And so that's my hope in the future of the church.
Thank you.
It's bright. We got leaders out there who are ready to step up.
Right. Right. Thank you. Thank you. You hit on something about that being, and as I pivot to you, Bishop Swanson, I heard you say something about there can't be any transformation without formation. I want y'all to know I did my homework. I just didn't bring you up here willy-nilly, but I tried to study. You said that. You said that. What are your speeches? But hearing that, but also taking the question, what do you see in terms of the future and where we're headed and possibilities?
Well, I think the possibilities are endless.
Okay.
Because we serve an infinite God with infinite power. Some of the things that we wrestle with, one of the things we wrestle with in particular as a church, is that we live in an era of tremendous discovery.
Okay.
And also that we have within our own capabilities things that today that we're doing that were done when I was a kid, we see them as miraculous. And what it has done for many of us is that it has moved us away from a spirit of the mysteriousness of God. And that God is the actual motivator and the mover and the shaper, not only of individual lives, but of a whole group of people.
Okay.
I mean, and as a result of it, we have got to find a way to include God in our plans.
Yeah.
I mean, and when I was talking about the fact of transformation, is that you can't transform an institution without you being transformed first.
Right. Right.
Because you are a victim of the institution.
Okay.
And so until you begin your transformation, you can't lead anybody else in that. And so part of it for the church is that, when Bishop Fairley is talking about not for the sake of the institution, the difficult piece that I found with that, particularly for boots on the ground people, is that many of them look at, say, a superintendent or a bishop or someone who they believe are sailing high above them, and they covet those positions.
Okay.
And they think that that's where you ought to be. But we've even said this. We say that the real action of the church happens at the local church.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the local church, not where I've sat as a bishop. So if that's the case, then the church has got to pivot and truly not say with its mouth that the local church is important, but with its resources.
Correct.
And that's the reason I said, earlier, that if I could go back, which you can't,
That's right.
I would spend more time grooming clergy and grooming laity than I am grooming the system. Because I spent a lot of time trying to tweak the system, and I found out that the system has within it a fail-safe.
Okay.
To make sure you don't change me, because if you change me, I go out of existence.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
individuals are the ones, if you can change them, and just quickly, and I'll be through it, but you look at, say, Journey Church, it was started in 2007.
Correct.
And look
correct.
at how you continued your growth even through all of the chaos and confusion.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And if you look at the churches that have continued their growth throughout all the chaos and confusion, what did they have that the churches during the chaos and confusion didn't have?
Okay.
That caused them not only to shrink, but some to die.
That's right.
So part of that is if we can look at those congregations and begin to dissect them and say, okay, we're missing the boat, because if there is, as my mama used to always say, if there are no eggs there's no biddies.
No biddies. Yeah.
No
yeah.
biddies, there ain't no chickens.
Yeah, no chickens.
So-
Now, where was that? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Houston, Texas,
Houston,
but my mother's from Mississippi.
Mississippi. All right, all right. Yeah, that sounds like a southern, real southern.
That's what that is. And so what she was trying to say, if you don't cultivate the thing that builds the system, you don't have a system.
Yeah.
And so part of it is that we've spent too much time with the system. So what do I do? I see the future there, but I also see a future where, and this kind of gets us in some sticky stuff, and that is where we're going to have to move outside of our normal pattern of doing things.
Normal pattern of doing things.
Yeah, I mean, and really, in a sense, for some of us, it's going back. It is what I'm almost sure you've done here, journey, and that is that you have taken your cue from your community. I mean,
Truly.
The place where you reside is where your opportunities are, because the people in that community, you see them cry.
Correct.
You see what makes them laugh. You see that they don't have jobs. You see all of those things. And so consequently, you move from being just a preacher to also being an entrepreneur.
Correct.
I mean, so part of that is if the church can begin to do that, as over gets to try to build itself, build the people, the people will build the church.
People will build the church. Yeah, one of the phrases we've adopted and it's come back to light this year is the community is the new church. And so to fully lean into that and embrace that and begin to explore more ways to be engaged has been helpful in that regard. So sort of the same question, future of the black church. Because as we think about all of the different transition changes, and I think I heard in a conference, Bishop School of Ministry, we were just there a few weeks ago, the presenter brought up that fact that the African American church has been loyal, been faithful, consistent in its presence. So, Bishop Fairley, what say you in the future and the hope and even the challenge of where we're headed in the black church?
Well, here's what I see in the black church to start with. And it's been a joy for me to go around. I just went to Old Bethel,
Okay.
Which is in Charleston, South Carolina.
Correct.
And I've been to Trinity in the Orangeburg process that happened up there with all those things. I think that what we're missing, what the larger church is missing, that the black church can give, if the dominant culture would listen, is this. African American churches and marginalized people, they know what it's like to have to depend on nobody but God. They know that.
Nobody but God.
That there's not a sense, unless we train them to do that, of entitlement in them.
Correct.
The whole thing in them, and so I believe that that's a lesson that they could teach the dominant culture if they would listen. Oftentimes it is the marginalized who begin to be more prophetic and who lead the church out of whatever darkness they're going into. You know, even when you look at scripture, look who Jesus hung out with in the beginning. He didn't start at the temple with the priests.
No.
He started among the marginalized, and those were the people that changed the world because they knew what it was like to have to depend on God. I sometimes fear that in the African American church, we have forgotten that part of our calling. We've forgotten that part of our calling. Even when I think about it on a broader scale, like with leadership and things like that, we have taught leaders. And I think we bought into this we're swimming in the water. And if you're going to get anywhere, you're going to have to do as the dominant culture says you need to do.
Wow.
You're going to have to do that. And we've forgotten the part of us that God put in us to inspire us. When I was at Old Bethel, they had a picture. The pastor did a beautiful job. He had a picture of Stephema Clark she belonged to that church. And he had a picture where she used to sit.
Wow.
And the question that kept coming up in my mind is who's next? What leader is up next?
Up next.
And so we got to begin to train those leaders who are going to be next, not to train them to save, again, to save the institution. This is not about survival. This is about thriving. And I believe our African-American churches could thrive. But what we've got to do, again, as we develop leaders, I remember one time Vance Ross preached his sermon. He said, people are going to come to your church. They're going to look like you. They're not going to talk like you. They're not going to act like you. And I think the genius of the African-American church is their ability to adapt spiritually to things that are happening around them. Yeah. And if we don't take advantage of that, and if our leaders don't begin to lead out of who they've been formed to be, then we're going to miss the boat. So I think the African-American church just may be the redemption for the church.
The church.
But we've got to go back and we've got to claim that and stop looking at what we're going through as a weakness. Okay. You know, where we don't have the numbers, we don't have this, but you've got to look at where your strength was. Correct. You got to go back and reach it, if that makes sense.
I think it does. I think it does.
So I think that's the genius of the American church. I've seen it here in South Carolina. Sure. You know, even in the smallest of churches, you see it. But you can get so beat down until you lose that part of who God has called you to be and do. Yeah. So it just might be. I mean, again, I know we referred to this before, but when my wife and I, when we came here to Journey, for the Sunday we came, you were one of the first churches we decided we were going to visit.
Thank you for giving me a heads up that you were coming to. I switched sermons that day, made sure I had something solid.
So we did come. And Pastor George, what I saw and what I witnessed was the genius of the black church. We can't be afraid of it. And we've got to teach our congregations that are struggling. You can't be afraid of it.
Can't be afraid.
You cannot be afraid. Yeah. Some things you just don't need to adapt to. Yeah.
And we're coming to you, Bishop Swanson, with Bishop Fairley.
I really want to respond to that, though, too.
Okay, all right.
Because I do think part of what Bishop Fairley is, what I really hear him saying, is don't sell the field in your backyard because there may be a pearl of great price there. Because what?
Say that one more time. Say that one more. Somebody may miss it.
That's in your backyard because there may be a pearl of great price there.
Pearl of great price.
You don't realize. It's the funniest thing how people don't realize what they really have. Okay. And the contribution. I mean, when you look at African Americans and you think about it, I remember years ago when my first visit to New York, I wanted to go to Sylvia's because I'd heard about Sylvia's.
All right.
But then when I heard the story, you know, of the food that was, I didn't know what food. I just heard Sylvia's. And I knew later on as I was going. In fact, Clyde Anderson took me to Sylvia's, and Sylvia was serving our food. I mean, food that we survived on.
That's right.
We didn't get the steak and the best parts of the animal. But we, you know, had chitlins, and we ate greens, we ate neck bones, and yet people wanted to go there. What we have in our communities is not only ability to survive, but to take what we survive on and turn it into thriving, and producing. In an era right now, when we're really moving towards a society of extremely rich people, and moving more and more towards have-nots. And so how can we teach the world to sing a new song? Madison Avenue has done a tremendous job on us in the sense that we think we don't have if we don't have what others have. But you have within you the ability to take what you have and to make it great. Quickly, and I'll be through. You take the genius of the hip-hop. What people don't realize about hip-hop is I came along when there was no hip-hop. I mean, you know, when hip-hop first came out, it was kind of bubblegum kind of stuff, you know. I remember Curtis Blow, we were playing basketball.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so it wasn't as controversial. But it was because there was a group before him called the Last Poets. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but go look them up.
I'm going to look
They're
it up.
called
The Last Poets. Got on my
The
list.
Last Poets were very controversial, and they talked about the era we were living in and what we were dealing with as black folk.
Right.
But what I'm looking at is how it has come from selling cassettes and 8-tracks and vinyl out of the trunk of their cars to now you got this big controversy about what was the man saying at Super Bowl at halftime.
Right.
Making millions of dollars.
That's right.
And,
They're not like us.
That's right. And they're not like us. So part of that is what we took was what the world didn't want.
Right.
And now the world wants what we have. And yet in a United Methodist Church,
Okay.
which is 95%, somewhere around there, Anglo.
Okay.
Okay? So we are a considerable minority in this church, but yet, because of our survival skills and our ability from grandma's teaching to listen to the voice of God, we have created million-dollar businesses.
That's right. That's right.
And tremendous people who can do some things that the church could benefit from, because it's not just about getting to heaven, it is also living as if heaven is with you now.
Right.
And so how do we do that with a church that today seems to stylize itself after other things, whereas with us, we've had to learn how to take what was left over and make it a luxury.
Let's go.
And so I just think that is true, that many of them don't, the minorities of our church, not only just us as African Americans, but you take even the Hispanics that are part of the United Methodist Church, Asians who are part of the United Methodist Church, and in many ways the United Methodist Church, though it's still heavily Anglo-centric, and as a result of it, many of us don't realize that we have always had this gift from God to do that. So how do you bring that in church? Easy. I mean, and that is that you don't try to get the system to do it, because the system is headed towards the Anglicizing.
Correct.
But you do it in your individual churches.
Individual churches.
That's exactly right, yeah. Because, I mean, when I came along, the shirt I'm wearing right, this jacket I'm wearing now, it's from St. Mary's Old Church. 12 people showing up on Sunday morning. One guy who was from the Caribbean, the rest were all white.
Okay.
And when I left there, we were over 700 in worship. Now, what happened? Well, basically, I remember so well the big argument was, are we going to become a black church? Wow. And I said, and this is bad English, but I said, I is black.
I is black. Yeah.
And as a result of it, God built that church. It was the only church in South Georgia. I mean, there was some that were growing, but this church was far outseeding everybody else.
Correct.
In its growth, because we began to minister to our community and to the people who showed up, who said, we love to do this, we love this, so let's go at it.
Yeah. Unapologetically.
That's right, unapologetically.
Unapologetically.
And so part of that is, to me, is where we're missing the boat. We talk integration. We talk DEI.
Correct.
But we don't live it.
Live it.
See, it's different than having me at the table.
Right.
And listening and accepting the fact that God is doing a new thing.
Yeah.
That at the end of time, as Revelation says, that we will all come to stand before God, and that we will praise God all in our own language. That won't be a melting pot.
That's right. That's right.
But we'll be doing it all. So, I mean, that's just, and that's got to stir.
Great. It's good tools. Good tools. Bishop?
And I do think that this is what I hear, and this is what I see, and even hearing Bishop Swanson talk a minute ago, to hear this, it's this, is that if we don't learn to listen to the African American church and what they have to offer to the church, then it's you, for the lack of a better term, you've wasted a gift that might just save you.
Save you.
Because the other thing about, I think that's important within the African American church that we need to understand, is that how we resource them, and I think that Weems said this, so he mentioned it, I'll share it too, is that when you look at the numbers of churches that chose to leave, and you said this too, the majority of them were Anglo churches.
Okay.
And so here in South Carolina, you have a large contingent of African Americans
Correct.
who decided that they were going to stay.
Correct.
Now, how we resource them now and what we do with them, I think will also have a lot to say about how the future of the United Methodist Church looks.
Correct.
We've always heard this saying that when America gets a cold, African American and marginalized people had the flu.
Get the flu.
And they had to deal with remedies to get well.
Yeah.
And so, so we know what it takes to
good.
get well.
To get well.
But sometimes I just feel like that we've sold that part of ourselves for what looked like gold.
We sold that part of ourselves for what looks like gold.
I mean, or this sense of and like Bishop Swanson was saying, we have, even when you look at the civil rights movement or any movement that has really transformed the world, you look at where that movement started.
Yeah.
You look at where it started.
Yeah.
And then how the world chooses to resource, how the world chooses to celebrate that, how the world chooses to listen to it, makes all the difference in the world. You are talking about a marginalized Jew in Jesus Christ who changed the world from the margins.
Okay.
From the margins.
From the margins, yeah.
And the temple didn't know how to resource these people.
That's right.
They didn't know what to do with these folk. And then all of a sudden you get this person who comes along and says, well, here's what, first of all, we're going to see you. First of all, we're going to acknowledge that you have a sense of worth and dignity.
Yeah.
We're going to recognize that.
Correct.
And so I often ask myself, what did he see in them? What did he see in them? And we've got to learn to see with those kind of eyes.
Yeah. Thank you. Good. So I'm sorry, Bishop. So I mean, we've unpacked some good stuff. Tools, I think, that as pastors and lay persons, community persons, listen and hear you all, they'll have practical things they can take back to their congregations. If a pastor is listening now, pastoring in 2025, and Bishop Fairley, you have how many years in the ministry now? How many?
I have about 38.
About 38. Bishop Swanson. Okay. My God. We'll give you some time to count. 50 plus. So over 80 plus years in practical ministry between the two of you, and I'm headed somewhere because Bishop Swanson, it was you preaching, because you mentioned to me early on about when that I spent a year on conference staff, but it was your sermon. I believe we were at a convocation in Texas where I was struggling between staying in a conference position and starting a new church, and I heard you preach, and you said that the greatest calling is to be a pastor in the local church. I heard you say it. You convicted me. I got on the plane that night. Said, now, Lord, let your servant depart in peace. I heard. I got all I needed. But what would you say to a pastor that's going to be listening? What advice would you give her, him, on what they should be doing to be effective and pursue some of the very things that you all just talked about in terms of the church? What, as knowing your experience, what would you say to the, I mean, I don't want the seminary answer. I need the honor, because you know the issues we deal with. Churches are not growing, or salary. What practical advice can they pull?
One thing they've got to start doing is
give it to me straight, no chaser, Bishop.
No, they've got to open their eyes to see that opportunities are all around them.
Okay.
Even opportunities that seem absurd that make no sense.
Okay.
That's what the Spirit is leading them to. And they have turned them down time and time and time again because of what I've said to you earlier.
Right.
And that is, because we're such a well-schooled church, unless you bring me the plan, already worked out, already planned, well-funded and everything, I think you are bogus.
Right.
And yet, every miracle, thank you, Jesus, that happened in the Bible and in people's lives literally started with a whisper from God that they heard. And the whole world was saying no.
Right.
And they said yes. I mean, and so part of it is most pastors don't hear just a little whisper. A lady comes to me and she says, I'm working on my doctorate in education. I need at least 20 young people, elementary school kids that I can work with to get this doctorate of education. I said, okay. And she said, and I would like to do it here at St. Mary's Road Church. And I said, okay. What else you need? She said, well, I've already contacted, at that time, the tobacco industry was giving money to the state of Georgia.
Wow.
That she could apply for that would fund what she was going to call Reading is Fundamental. Okay. And they were going to buy all of the books for this. Because the school she talked to had determined that the one piece that was debilitating most of the students was their inability to read.
Okay. And
so she was going, and we were going, and at the same time, there was a white couple that had joined our church that gave us $20,000 to buy a van. All right. And so what happened was we wound up getting an old broke down school bus. But look at this. At the same time, I've just been appointed as the chairman of the Housing Authority in Columbus, Georgia. And the unit she wanted to deal with was one of my units in the Housing Authority.
Look at God.
And I said, okay. Yeah. And so what the Housing Authority said to me, don't buy any transportation because we will take and use our own vans. Wow. That 20 students turned into 120 every Tuesday night. We were able to pay teachers to come in and do the mentoring, the teaching. Those kids not only joined our church later on, but their families joined. Yeah. That was part of the miracle of St. Mary's Road. But it was a whisper. I could have said to her, well, I don't know if we can do that. I mean, how are we going to do it? Right. And so part of that was that I had to look at the connections God had made. God had set those connections up. And sometimes we're not looking at it. And it's all of the resources are right there in front of us.
So open your eyes.
Open your eyes.
So a class at Gammon
didn't help me with
Mr. Board.
That's right.
Mr. Board member, chairman would be open your eyes.
Open your
give me a
eyes.
class
That would be my class. Open your eyes.
A vision class.
Open your eyes. Then the second piece is listen to your own people.
Listen to your own people.
Because God is not sending anybody to your church who's not an asset.
Okay.
Everybody who comes with hopes and dreams and aspirations about life. And they will come and they will speak into you an opportunity. And so don't see it as a burden for you. It's an opportunity. You turn around and say, okay, is that what you want to see happen here? Yeah. What are you going to do to make that happen? Yeah. Then all of a sudden, you got a worker you didn't have before. Okay. I mean, so listen to the people who are there. They will help you, because what will happen as your church grows, too, is the more your church grows, the further you will get away from grassroots. Right. Because of just the nature of the job. So you have to have the people to tell you what's going on down on the ground. Yeah. All right. Yeah. And then the other piece that is even prerequisite in this is also do not neglect the spiritual disciplines of prayer and of Bible reading and Bible study, but God can not only speak to the people, but most of all to you. I mean, notice God spoke to Moses up on the mountain first. That's right. I don't even remember when Moses had a class to teach the Ten Commandments. So it's not in there. That's good. So he had to learn that. So part of that, I mean, these are just some ordinary stuff that they can do. And then one last piece, and I'll shut up because there are a zillion of them.
All right.
That's
good.
Ed Buford, who is now dead and gone on to glory, who was on the board of discipleship, pastoring in New York, taught me, and he said this: anytime a person visits your church,
okay,
look at how much time they have invested in coming to see you. They had to get up at least anywhere, depending on how far they had to come to visit you, at least anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, just getting up out of the bed.
Out of the bed.
Then they take another 30 to 45 minutes to get dressed to come to your church. And then another 30 minutes or so to drive to your church. And you give them gobbledygook on Sunday. So you got to really be prepared. But also, once they come to visit you, make sure, especially when you're small, see, this is the glory of being a small church.
Yeah.
Because once they come to visit you, you can go visit them. And it'll shock them to no end, even if you call them, even if you text them, even if you send an email to them. It would shock them that you even knew they were in the church.
Yeah.
And so part of that, and then the part of that really blessed us at St. Mary's Road was that I then began to recruit lay folk who love to talk and who love to visit.
Yeah.
And I got them.
Love to talk and love to visit.
Uh-huh.
All right.
And I got them to actually make the initial presentation, because at first I was doing all this myself.
Yeah.
Because there were no people to do it.
Yeah.
And then they began to do that, and then they would say to me, this person is hot, and all I need you to do is go and flip the pancake.
Go close the deal.
Yeah, go close the deal.
Go close the deal.
So part of it is I mean, it's just easy little stuff that you can learn as over against going somewhere, getting a highfalutin baked plan that worked at that particular location where that person was, because it was suited for that location. Yeah. And you got to create it for yourself.
You made it rich. We're gonna pull that out, and we're gonna add to it, Bishop Fairley. Same question for that pastor.
I'm getting all these things. That's easy.
Yeah, we scribing right now for that pastor that's gonna be listening.
Okay. Yeah.
She or he has to start ministry this coming weekend. Go.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, everything Bishop Swanson said, I agree with. But here are a couple of things that have got to be key. It has been said that it is easier to start a fire than to put out a fire than it is to light wet wood.
Yeah.
So
you grew up where, Bishop? Because that's an old saying. You grew up.
I grew up in Laurinburg, North Carolina.
Yeah, that's Laurinburg.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I would say to any person out there is, if you're going to do this, do it with the same passion that God had when God gave Jesus to transform your life.
Yeah.
If you do it out of that kind of passion, so all the things Bishop Swanson said, absolutely true. Those practical things, when you're preaching, you can't fool a child now. They know when it's real.
When it's real. Wow.
And so you need to be real, for one.
Real.
You need to be real. Brian Stevenson always talks about doing ministry, living in proximity to the people. Okay. The other thing that I agree with Bishop Swanson, you can't give what you don't have. And so in the world we're living in, the kind of things we're going through with, the uncertainty, all those things, we better have some passion behind what we're doing. Yeah. We better make sure that people understand that I believe everything that I'm telling you. And the way it comes out is going to be key. You know, the way that comes out. I heard us joking about when we was coming to people, well, I don't sing, I preach. But I'm telling you, if you're a church and you ain't got the music to go with that, to work with that, you know, you've got to be firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, that's good, Bishop.
And sometimes those cylinders are not the kind, for an example, and this is what I mean about helping leaders to learn how to get out of God's way. Just say you came here to Journey, and you started this congregation. There were things you did different than what you learned. Some of the things you did take, You took the good part of what you learned and you used them. Now, I'm assuming.
Correct.
And you used them here. But you used them out of a sense of authenticity. They were you. What you're seeing here is what God has placed in you, and you see those in the people. So I would say to leaders out there, number one, you be authentic.
Be authentic.
Do not front.
Don't front.
You know, one of the things you brought up, though, too, that I think that is tough for the black church sometimes.
Okay.
And that is strive for excellence.
Strive. Lean into that a little more, Bishop.
No matter.
We got a few more minutes.
You have a pianist who can get you by. You will get to a point where that pianist won't get you by any longer. And that's the hardest part I found in being a pastor, because we also pastor the people who even work for us.
Correct.
And we fall in love with them. And sometimes we've got to say to them, you've carried us as far as you can. Wow. I thank you for that. Because for excellence sake, I've got to move on.
Yeah.
Because in order for me to continue to harvest, now you can find something else for them to do. Because see, part of it is that also that not only works for the pianist, but it works with a leader in the church who may be misplaced.
So we need some counseling for pastors.
That's right.
When they start dismissing.
That's right.
Or run up on some of those landmines or potential sacred cows.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a person who's sitting there who's your staff parish relations committee chairperson, who really truly does not know how to handle that position.
Yeah.
But could be an excellent president of the usher board.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you help them to transition? And so part of that is managing your resources.
Yeah.
And how do you help people to do that? Because you're going to do it. I mean, quickly, just a quick little story. At St. Mary's Road, the church had gotten from that initial 12 to about 125. All right. And they wanted to talk with my staff parish, wanted to talk to me. And the chairperson just stopped by one day. I'm at the office.
Okay.
And so he says to me, we're going to have a PPR committee meeting next week. Well, I hadn't heard anything about that, you know. And I said, so what's that all about? He said, well, two things. Number one, bring your calendar, because we want to make sure you take a vacation. Because you have not been doing that.
All right.
And so I said, well, that's cool. He said, but number two, he said, we want to get, how many we work with? I said, about 125, 130. He said, well, we believe we can go at least 250.
Wow.
I said, yeah, I believe that too. He said, well, you pretty much said that from the pulpit. He said, but what we want to know is how we're going to get there.
How we going to get there?
So you come to the next meeting prepared to tell us that. Well, George, that almost ran me crazy. Because I will be honest with you, I didn't really have a written down plan. You know what I'm saying? But somewhere along the way, the Lord had blown that into their spirit to blow it into me.
Right.
That you're at a level now where your church is expecting more out of you.
Right. So
And when you say expectations,
something brewing. Something's brewing.
When you say expectation, here it is. I don't care where you're serving. I don't care if you just got 10 people, 25 people in that church. Those people, as Bishop Swanson said, they're coming to hear you. They deserve your best.
The best.
So excellence, you can look at a church. I can look at the leader of a church and go, whether that leader, and this is in anything, I could tell by the way the people follow them whether or not if you expect excellence out of you, then that congregation will live up to what you expect because you're doing it. And so I would say to leaders out there, I don't care where you are, and I don't care who you follow.
Yeah.
It's left up to you to lead with excellence. And I've seen excellent 25-member churches.
Right. That's right.
I've seen excellent 3-member choirs.
Oh yeah.
And so you've got to be
3-part harmony.
Yeah, and so you've got to do whatever you do, and it's got to be done with excellence.
Yeah.
And people will live up to it. Leaders tend to grow a church either down or up.
Depending on where they are.
Yeah.
You know, so as you do this and as you grow this church, that's where you've got to begin.
Yeah.
You know, when we're here, we're going to be doing this men's event. And one of the things I always remember is the story of the call of David.
Okay.
And Jesse brought down all his sons, and he trotted them out there, and every time Samuel would say, no, that's not the one. He said, don't you got another son somewhere?
Yeah.
The one that's out there on the hill that's always praising me, where he at? And it says that God looks on the heart. When you stand up in front of your congregation, your heart for what you do should be on display.
That's right.
And your heart should be the kind of heart, whatever moves the heart of God should move yours.
Yeah.
And if you're in that community and you're bringing these people in and they see excellence, I mean, you can't do it. And every pastor, you've been called. If you've been called, don't tell me that you can't do excellent work.
That's right.
Because you're not doing it by yourself.
Yeah.
You know, when I was in the Church of God in Christ, my pastor used to always
Say that again now, Bishop.
when I was in the Church of God in Christ.
So you've been Methodist all your life. Come on.
No.
I got to read this
I was recruited
bio.
straight out of seminary from the United Methodist. I was Kojic. And the
C.H. Mason.
Yeah, C.H. Mason. And the funny thing about it, that pastor, Edwards used to say to us, that'll do, won't do.
That'll do.
Won't do.
Won't do.
Yeah. You know, we come from, because we come from, as the vast majority of our people do, come from situations where we didn't have the best of everything. Okay. Sometimes we developed a tremendous ability to jerry-rig what we call stuff. And we just threw it together in order to get by. But there comes a time when you can't jerry-rig and get by. You got to really bring in experts to help you to get some things done. And so part of that is that it's the old story of two kids talking about their daddies, and they were talking about this new instrument to wash cars with. And young man said, yeah, my daddy has that. He said, it's, you know, you put in, it's a brush, and you put it on the hose, on the water hose, and you can wash the car. And I said, my daddy loves that. He said, every Saturday, he washes his brand spanking new Mercedes-Benz with that. Yeah. And he said, what did your daddy wash his with? He said, well, my dad doesn't have a car. He doesn't even have a Mercedes-Benz, but he got that brush because one day he know he gonna get one.
He gonna get one.
So part of that is expectations. And do you have an expectation of that? I mean, when I drove in, I could see there were expectations because of where you settle. I mean, part of it is, what are you really expecting? And most of our United Methodists, the part of our system that I think causes problems over against here in the Kojic Church was the Kojic Church just wanted an opportunity.
Right.
As a pastor, you know, we talk a lot about that in the United Church. I got an opportunity for you. But in the Kojic Church, that's all we really wanted, because we didn't expect, first of all, we didn't expect any guaranteed pay. We didn't expect the parsonage. We didn't expect health insurance. We didn't expect pension, none of that. All we wanted was a church. Yeah. And if you give us a church, we felt like with God with us, we could do anything. Yeah. And so part of it is that, do you believe that even if they put you back in the back of the mountain, down in the hollow, that what you do is so great that the world will find a way to where you are.
Wow. Be the path to your door.
Bishop. And I do think this goes back to the genius of the black church and black leaders who tend to lead with excellence. Here's what you discover about them. And I'll use my own journey for an example. And Bishop, but they used to tell me this all the time. He said, now, Leonard, he said, you've been raised in their schools. I went to Duke. You've been raised in their schools. And you've been trained by them. Okay. So, and when he started saying that, I started thinking, I say, now, wait a minute. Now, why in the world is he telling me this story? And what he was telling me and reminded me of is that my life journey and who I was unique in the church, that I have been trained in your school. And I'll put it like this. I could send one of you. I can't send Bishop and I won't send you, so I'll get away from the appointment thing. But the genius of an African American leader who leads with excellence is this. It's just like marginalized people who could speak 5 languages.
Okay. That's right.
And then you got somebody of the dominant culture that can speak 1. Who's the intelligent person in that group?
Right.
Who's the person that can adapt to all of our lives? We've been adapted. All of our lives. Yeah. And in this day and age, it's going to take that kind of adaptability to get us through.
That's right.
You've done this work at this church because you are what you call an adaptive leader.
Oh, yeah.
You took what Christ had placed in you, because there's no way around this. When I served my first cross-racial appointment, here's the thing that my late wife told me, Priscilla. And she was the type of person, she would be sitting in church, and I would be preaching, and you would hear this voice say, amen. And so one day I went to her and I said, now, honey, you can't do that in here. This is a white church. And she looked at me and she said, I get up every morning with oxygen in my nose. And if you think I'm going to sit up in somebody's church and not say amen, you might as well quit now.
Wow.
And so, Brother George, what happened in there is that on the last Sunday we were there, those folks started getting it. They started saying amen.
Amen.
They started. And so we have this unique ability to be in situations because of who we are and because of our history.
Yeah.
That, as we've been saying, you not only learn how to survive, you thrive. And people be looking, how in the world are you doing that? How in the world did you move into this church? That was an all-white church. And you preach with your shoes off. You still preach black.
Yeah.
How do you do this?
Yeah.
It's the genius.
And I've seen the shoes off.
It's the genius of where we've been. It's the genius of our story.
Yeah.
And we can't help but to be, and when we lose that part of our identity, I think what's happening in African American church as well is that we have, and this is across the whole church, we have an identity problem. We have slam out forgotten who we say it all the time. You got to remember who you are and whose you are. We forgot that.
Forgot who we are.
We forgot who we are.
Yeah.
And we forgot that who we are, the God that called us. And when we live into who God has called us to, that's what grows the church.
Yeah.
Now, when you live outside of that, you got something, but you ain't got a church.
You ain't got a church.
You got something, and that's what's happening now. We got an institution. We got committees and boards and agencies. But we've forgotten really who we are, whose we are.
Yeah.
And till we regain that part of who we are. And when you find leaders who own it, who say, I don't care what it looked like, I'm going to own who God called me to be from the start.
Sure.
And if I could stand up in somebody's church and lead from that point.
Yeah.
Because for me, you're talking about growing up different. I didn't grow up in a church. I grew up, the first church that ever came to my neighborhood was a Seventh-day Adventist church. It was all 5 boys, 4 girls, all 5 of us rolling tires in the neighborhood, the thing, snotty nose, nappy head, all that stuff. But these girls came and they invited us to a vacation-long Bible school under a tent. And when they left, they paired us with a lady who would invite us to her house every Friday for Sabbath school. And she would teach us over and over again. And she was teaching us this song, Go Tell It on the Mountain. And I'm going, why is this crazy lady teaching us this song over and over again? But then she asked my mama. She said, Doretha, I want to take these boys to church. And my mama said, well, no, I don't want people laughing at what my boys got on. Miss Almeida said, that's all right. She bought me the first suit I ever owned. But it was because they were living into something that was authentic. We can forget about this attractional model. That ain't happening no more.
No.
You got to go get these folk. They ain't just coming. If you go get them, you better have something for them when they come in that church.
That's kind of Wesleyan. That's
right.
kind of the Wesleyan.
You better
I think
have
that's what
something.
the history book's talking about.
See, you go out here and you promote your church, and then people get there and it's not authentic.
Yeah.
They're coming in one way and leaving out the other.
Yeah.
And so I would say that to clergy too. Be for real. Be who God has called you to be
for real.
in that community. Be who you're called to be in your context. Do not sell your soul to be like somebody else or to do what somebody else does. You be who God has called you to be. That's the genius of the black church, and I be doggone if we ain't beginning to forget it.
Wow.
But one of the quickly, I think one of the pieces of that is whether we like it or not, our children and our grandchildren, for me, are exposed to a whole different world than I was. And for them, it's a different way in which we've got to try to reach them. A part of it is something that somebody asked me, what are you going to do in retirement? And one of the things that I definitely said I wanted to do was to at least find out if God had poured anything into me worth passing on. And sort of like young people talk today about, paying it forward. Because part of that is how do you take your experience and say, this is what I learned in life, and then be able to melt it down to a pearl and say, this is it. Other stuff is extraneous, but that's it. So part of it is for churches that are experiencing growth and who are committed to that. Are there opportunities also in your congregational setting or in your teaching setting for nurturing young women and men who also sense that calling, and can you send them out? And I'll say this and I'll be through, because I came up in an era and a time when growth was celebrated.
Yeah.
Okay. But now, 40 years hence, it's almost demonized that when you grow, and this is talk about the United Methodist Church because that's been my cocoon since 1981. But so part of it is almost demonized that if your church grows, like you're doing something that is foreign to what it means to be Christian, let alone be United Methodist. And so how do you fight that uphill battle in a culture that is obsessed with death and dying in the United Methodist Church, that is obsessed with the fact that we ain't going nowhere, and so we just better hold on to what we have. I mean, and I've seen that in you since we first met, this anxiousness about the future, that I really do believe what you said earlier, that our best years are ahead of us. And how do you hold on to that in a culture today among your peers even, where you're an anomaly?
Yeah. Well, that's it. Look like that's a wrap, folks. We're good.
No, at some point I'd really like to have because you are. I mean, we used to have the Kirby Johns. We used to have the Walter Kimbroughs. We had the, Cornelius. We had the people, but now you're an anomaly. And
well, I'll say this, and we'll move to saying the pot is brewing over. Part of it is creating cohorts and communities like we're doing right now. And I think Bishop Fairley, we were here, BMCR was here back last year, 2024, I think it was October. And part of what we said, bishops right here on the stage, is we were going to be intentional about creating a cohort of like-minded pastors that felt and wanted to be retooled, reshaped, and see the church lean back into the Wesleyan roots, which was a field preacher going out and bringing people a go and tell versus a come and see model. So a part of what I have always tried to do is to create and be a part of those communities wherever they are, whether it is, and I'm going to quote the late Bishop Cornelius Linton Henderson, who was our dean at Gammon. He would say Metho, Bapto, Pinto, Presto, Lutho, United Methodist Church. So wherever you could find those persons, you lean into them and help you to grow. But I would love, as we live into this podcast, the Pastor's Brew is ready for you to explore that more. So I want to say a great word of thanks to you, Bishop Fairley, for your leadership and for your profound and prophetic words today. Likewise to you, Bishop Swanson, for coming out of retirement. We're gonna hold you out of retirement. We're going to call you off the bench and tell you to dust off your shoes, and you all will be teaching this weekend. So we're going to be looking forward to that. And we thank you again for sharing, and we look forward to all the things that God will continue to do through our church, helping to build Christ's kingdom here on earth. God bless you.
God bless you.